The full moon in your dream is you. القمر برصة القمر فريدة القمر دايما القمر كريمة القمر نعيمة. Welcome to Lunar Conversation number 7. We are here to celebrate my recent album, 13 Lunar Meditations, Summoning the Witches. And today we're going to zoom in on the 7th track on this vinyl. We're closing side B. There are 4 sides to the album, and we're closing side B with Yasmoon's Moon, which is mostly an instrumental, kind of very meditative, very wide open piece that I wrote with and for my daughter Yasmin, and with some lyrics by Malika Zara, who you just heard, and by my daughter. So I would love to invite to this conversation with me Eylem Basaldi and Aram Bajakian, my beautiful collaborators from this project. Hi!
Hi.
So happy to be here with you. I miss you both terribly. I want to be in a room with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at least for now, we're on screen together.
It's so nice to see you both.
It's
Yes,
amazing to see you.
Sure.
So Eylem, you're now in California after
Yes.
many years in New York.
Yes.
And you were born in Turkey, right?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Where, in Istanbul or somewhere else?
No, I was actually born in a town called Bilecik, which is about like 4 hours from Istanbul, but it's inland. So
not on the Mediterranean.
smaller town, and then I came to Boston for like I was in Boston for 15 years, and then
Oh my gosh. Which is where we met, actually.
That's right. It's cool. And then New York for 10, and then COVID happened, and my brother's down here, so, and my partner's family is here too, so we kind of drove.
Decided. Oh, you
country,
drove
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Whoa. That's a hell of a drive.
So, yeah.
Did you stop along the way?
We did some stops, but we have a dog and a cat, so which were in the car with us. So
You wanted to get somewhere.
it was limited, but it was still really cool though. I mean, it was roads were quite empty, and so this was almost a year ago, I guess, like end of August. So things were still, under stress and in lockdown and everything. So
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, it was a great experience to be able to drive.
And in a way, it's nice, especially under lockdown, to drive rather than fly.
Yeah.
With all the protection gear.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
At least you can breathe the air.
Yeah.
Nice. And Aram, we met in New York ages ago and then ended up in Vancouver at the same time.
Yeah, we met actually at JFK Airport, and I remember we had a glass of wine.
Oh, nice.
And I think we were both afraid to tell people in New York we had moved to Vancouver because or at least I was, because I didn't want to lose any gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Once it gets out, forget it.
Yeah.
But then, and then we that was such a long time ago. I think that was in 2014 maybe, or 2013.
We were on the same tour, but I don't think we exchanged one word on the tour.
No.
We ended up like becoming good friends on that.
Yeah. I was like, what are you doing going to Vancouver?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Amazing. It's so nice to have you both here. Should we start by listening to the song?
Yeah.
So remember what we're talking about?
القمر برصة، القمر فريدة، القمر دايمة، القمر كريمة، القمر نعيمة.
ירח משמח. ירח צוחק. ירח מבולבל קצת. ירח קצת עושה שטויות, אבל לא נורא.
That little bit at the end is maybe my favorite part of the album.
It's so awesome.
It's nice to have that in there.
I didn't know you did the drawings. They're
I
amazing.
know.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been weird and fun. I did all these animations with these guys in London, and the guy who was doing it got sick with COVID, and it's been 2 months already, and he's not fully back to health. So he just told me, I'm laying off of all of my work. I can't do anything right now. So I had to submit to it. So it's become a daily practice for me now. I draw every day, and it's been really fun. And then for this one, because the kids are part of it, I used their drawings as well. And then I just changed the order sometimes, or did some in-between things to connect them a little bit more. But the colorful ones are Maya. She's a little artist, that one. She loves drawing, and she goes into all that thing that she did, because Sarit Ivrani, the artist who made the artwork for this album, she made such rich artwork. There's so much that can be drawn from it and that can be played with. So she just took that and superimposed that drawing, and she went into so much detail, so many colors. I just love that part.
That's so awesome. It's really cool and beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks. It was fun to make.
Yeah.
Eylem, I wanted to ask you a bit, if you feel like telling us a bit about just the Turkish music and Turkish Maqams, and how you bring that into, because this is not Turkish music, but I feel like when you interpret it, you're bringing in some of those traditions into whatever you play, and I love that so much. And Aram, actually, I feel like in some ways you do that too, with a different kind of collage of sounds. I think you both bring so much heritage of different sorts into the sound. So I just wanted to talk to you a bit about that, and also to mention that moment when you're really improvising with this sensibility of what sounds to me like what you bring in from Turkish music, and Aram, you went into this distorted sound, and I just love that moment. It's like one of the highlights for me, because it has this very USA kind of sound along with something from other places, and it brings this. I love these combinations when things mesh that are not born together, but you bring them together.
Yeah. I mean, it's so as you know, Ayelet, I mean, I'm coming from a classical Western music background, and actually when we were at NAC, I just kind of started getting into. I started playing actually with a group of Greeks, and then a group of Arabs, and then a group of Armenians, and then Turks, and then that's how it actually started. It wasn't even Turkish music that I specifically honed into. I mean, obviously that was my ear just because I grew up there.
Yeah.
But it was never a, oh, I want to learn, I want to do this music. So it just, I just hadn't done that. And I mean, I was also just kind of very much into the Western classical stuff that I was doing at the time anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, it's funny that you say USA because I think Boston, even, I mean, everywhere around here, I guess, in a way, but that's just kind of where it started. But it brought so much of that together, and like all of these, even within Turkey, but then also Greek music, Arabic music, and there's so many elements that are similar, but then they're so specific. And like even if I go back to Turkey and play what I play, I'm not a Turkish.
No, yeah, for sure.
I don't claim to be. I'm never going to be. So, yeah. But and I think I've learned the repertoire, but also just working with learning from so many amazing musicians in Boston and in New York. It just kind of brought together all these sounds and traditions kind of together in me, and I definitely pull from the Turkish side of it, and but like it's amazing though. Like I think I don't know where else I'd be able to do this, but like I would play, I'd go play a North African band, that day, and then the next day I'd go play with some Arabs, and then from Syria, or and then the next day I would be doing something completely like from the Balkans, and so it's I don't know, it's just like, yeah, I think what I do kind of comes from all of that with
That's interesting that you went to school at NEC, because like I grew up in Massachusetts near Boston. When were you both at NEC?
Like early 2000s.
Early 2000.
Okay. Do you know Udi Hrant?
Of course.
Yeah. So interesting thing about Udi Hrant is an Armenian oud player who used to come to the U.S. every year and perform.
Yeah.
There's a record of him where the saxophone and clarinet player on it is Joe Maneri.
Yes.
Yeah.
I studied with Joe Maneri actually at NEC for a little bit.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of an interesting.
Yeah.
And that record, he's very much playing in like the Greek, like kind of like Armenian wedding style that happened, right. That he used to, those bands he used to play in. But that's interesting.
And you've been venturing into the oud.
Yeah, I got an oud 2 months ago.
So exciting.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I've been studying with Ara Dinkjian.
Oh my God! All right, yes, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know.
He's amazing. So it's like, what I'm realizing is a couple things. So I'm starting to learn Maqam, and it's really like some of the notes that are like a little bit flat or a little sharp sound so funky at first, but once you get used to them, they're so juicy, and you love them. And what I realize is I've always kind of tuned my guitar like a bit out of tune, but now I'm realizing maybe it wasn't out of tune. Maybe I'm just hearing the Maqams.
What you had.
Like
now it sounds wrong to me if it's tuned in the Western way.
Yeah.
When somebody's faking it sounds wrong.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't. It does. Exactly.
And what Ara said in a couple lessons ago, he said it was kind of interesting. Like he said, you don't know how your like great grandfather might have held a spoon. But you might hold your spoon the same way as, and I have a really weird way of holding spoons. So, but who's to say that you also don't hear the same rhythms, the same tonalities as that person too? Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. But yeah, I've been practicing quite a bit on the oud and trying to learn some. Yeah,
that's great. I love it.
Yeah.
So we've been saying the word Maqam, but I don't know if people know what that is. So do you wanna show or say or?
Sure. So, I don't want to say scales, but maqam is basically the mode system that exists in, I think, the eastern part of the world. And again, like as similar as they are, they're also there are differences in the, what we call a bayati and what Arabs call a bayati, and then and Armenians might do it differently. But so and also even like you take a song, it's the same song, and you go to all these different places and they all have it, but it's, there's these like
little nuance.
slight, exactly, the slight nuances, and it, they might play it actually with a different in a little differently of the same maqam, but so I guess, let's see. So I'll play a little bit and then we can maybe talk about it. Here's Bayati, and to kind of explain it, I guess, in Western music we have a whole step. If you, I'm hoping that people know a little bit
the
about
piano.
Yes. So if you look at a piano, you see two notes that are next to each other. We'll say from C to D, and that's a whole step.
In the white keys.
In the white keys, correct. Yeah. And in Western music, between that C and D, there's only one black key, and that's a C sharp, but it's right in the middle. So when you think about it, it's here's the C, and then with that middle note and right in the middle, that's what you would hear. But then, so
all the intervals between the notes are exactly the same between every two notes.
Exactly, yes.
That are stacked next to each other.
Correct. But when you look at, when you look at maqam, there are notes from. So you have between that D and the C. There's all these different frequencies that that we can use, and it's interesting. So in Turkish music. You take a whole step, they actually divide that by 9.
Oh,
so
by
you
9.
have 9 intervals between a whole step. And I mean, once after learning this and after figuring out what those were, it was kind of like, it's so specific. So anyway, like, so there, and each maqam is basically almost like a roadmap. And it can change. It can start away. It can go somewhere else. It can go here. It can go there, and then it can end here. And then, or another maqam might start here, and then it might end over here. So
the starting and ending points are determined. So that's really what differs that from a scale, right? Because a scale is a series of 8 notes, basically, out of the 12 that are available. Right. It can be less than 8, but let's say a major scale is 7, 8 notes, however you count it.
Right.
And you can use any of them and you would be inside the scale, but there is no determination of where you would start or end, right? And the maqam, so you're saying that the maqam actually part of the practice is also, it's not just using that series of notes in whatever way, but there's also like, where do you begin the melody and where do you actually conclude it?
Yes. So where you begin and where you go and where you come back to, and it's usually the first 5 notes are your kind of home, and then even that can change. But then, I mean, this is so much. I know
huge
so much
system.
Information. It's a huge system. So I'll play. Here's a maqam called Bayati. So that's 4 notes. is Beati, and what makes it a Beati is that exact placement of that second note. This. It's not.
Which is what? What would you call it?
It's not.
Right.
So that's what makes it a Beati, basically. And it can go. You can take a Beati. You can start and you can end there, and that'll be a Beati. But if you go, let's say. So that's one pathway. And what we did was there was a Beati here, and then here's another Beati on top of it. So you have a Beati and Beati. So. But
you kept referring to the bass note of the first one.
Right,
so you
correct.
keep grounding yourself in the first one.
Exactly. And but you can also go. We can do this. And here we had the same bass again, and then we went up to a Hijaz. And Hijaz is actually a maqam that a lot of times in movies and stuff, when there's anything Eastern, this is the
most common one, right?
Over here. You know, it's I think it's the closest in a way to Western music. So you know, this kind of it became the
default,
the favorite. But yeah, I mean, it's so vast. I feel, you know, like there and in Turkish music alone, there's like over 100 maqams.
Wow.
Nowadays, back in the day, a lot of them were used, but now I think it's only like 20 to 30 of them that are used on a regular basis.
But the masters know. Do the masters?
Oh yeah, they
know all of them.
Of course, yes, yeah, they would know. This is, you know, they study their whole lifetime learning this. So, but I mean, it's fascinating. It's amazing.
The majority of Turkish musicians would use these 20 to 30 maqam.
Yeah.
And so how do you establish, I guess by the melody, but for example, when you bring in some of that world into contemporary music, how do you establish what maqam to go to? Or do you just go naturally by the flow?
I think depending on what's happening in the like the whatever
in the accompaniment,
whatever piece whatever the piece is that is non-traditional Eastern or traditional, whatever you want to call it. But
do you find that you have to you sacrifice the maqam tuning if you're playing with Western musicians, like a piano player or a guitarist?
Yes and no, in a way, because like it's now there's so much more of it. Actually, there are tuned pianos that have the quarter tones, and it's amazing. It's so awesome to hear it. or even like guitarists, you have fretless guitars that they can do this stuff, and same thing with bass, fretless bass players. But at the same time, though, I think there's something really cool about being able to play this stuff with none of this, non-traditional players, because there's they bring what they bring, and then a lot of times you end up somewhere that you would never end up in, and if you're just playing with all traditional instrumentalists. I feel like so I find it really like there's so much creativity that ends up happening. So.
I find in my work that that's been somewhat of a delicate balance, because I also love touching on traditional musics, and bring them into non-traditional settings. And I found that, you discover when you do that there are so many purists in the world.
Oh my God, yes.
And that I'm not one. And people like really take offense sometimes in you daring to do that, or it's do you find that do you come across anger?
Totally. Yeah. Oh yeah, like that. If I go back to Turkey, like I it would be a horrible thing that I was doing the things that I do. For the purists. Although, like, I feel like it's changing. Things are changing. People are opening, especially the younger generation is always more open to different things and options, and we're
even in the jazz community. I found like people are like, "What's that? That's it's no longer jazz." Like where people put boundaries, in places that for me, this is what's interesting. I find in our time, in our moment in time, the thing that's so interesting is that we come with so much baggage and so much migration. Like so many people are not from where they are. And so we bring our sound bags, like you said, Aram, with the spoon, Like I just this week for the first time I saw a photo of my grandfather's father. I've never seen a photo of him before. And suddenly, I see this photo of a man. I didn't even know his name before. And he's familiar because he's, he looks a little bit like my cousin. He looks a little bit, and it's so interesting, the stuff that we bring with us. And to me, that's the uniqueness of our time, because like in our grandparents' time and even our parents' time, maybe people were pretty local. And we're much more able to be fluid about where we live and what we're influenced by. And to me, that's the most fascinating thing, is to combine, like to bring that into music rather than try to keep it separate and like boxed very neatly. I find that that's the most interesting thing. Yeah.
No, I think, it definitely, I think it is amazing. I couldn't imagine not having, like, having done so many different things. It's definitely made me what I do now and who I am, and not having had any of it would have been so different. And
And Aram, you really do that with your project about I'm trying to remember now. It was called, it had pomegranates in it.
Oh, that's music inspired by the color of pomegranates.
Yeah.
There's a film by Parajanov, Sergei Parajanov, who is a Georgian, Ukrainian, and Armenian film director.
Oh, wow.
And he did films about each of those places, and The Color of Pomegranates is one about Armenia. And I saw it. I was in New York at my friend Shanir's house and his wife, who's from Japan, was like, "Do you know this Armenian film?" And I was like, "No."
Oh my gosh.
And I remember seeing it, and it's mesmerizing.
Oh, wow.
And like each image in the film is like you could spend a lifetime analyzing and dissecting. So I decided I would write an alternate soundtrack to that. At the time, I didn't really think about what that meant, like what it would mean to actually like impose my own music on a film by someone who was jailed, and and whether that was okay. And since then, I've realized it's probably wasn't the good thing. So that's why it's inspired by the film, because the composer of the film music is also really beautiful. And so, yeah.
And then you also did the project about the Armenian genocide.
Yeah, I've actually been doing a bunch of stuff with Alan Samerjian, who's an Armenian poet in New York. And we just did another piece with Kevork Murad, who is an Armenian Syrian artist. And he does animations, visual animations.
Yeah. So he's the one who made that animation for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was incredible.
Yeah, it's super powerful. The poems are really powerful. There's some of them are by poets, Armenian poets who were killed in the Armenian genocide. Some are contemporary. Peter Bajakian, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet. I think his poems are the most powerful for me because they talk about like being in New Jersey but dealing with post-traumatic stress and things like that. So so it's really there's lots of music.
So when you go now to start playing the oud, do you feel like you're somehow also connecting with some of that heritage, even though you grew up in the US and you grew up American, but you have this Armenian identity that's very much part of your work?
It's really interesting. So like being growing up in Armenia, like as an Armenian, like Turkey's bad, right? So like my whole life, it's just Turkey's bad, and then the best ouds are made in Turkey. So like the process of buying an oud was in itself could be a PhD dissertation, just the psychological prospect or ideas of going through that and finding this amazing oud player in Izmir, or oud maker in Izmir, who like makes these beautiful sounding ouds that when I hear them, I'm like, that's the sound. Because ouds are different in Syria, they're different in Iraq, they're different in Egypt. And so coming to terms with that, following him on Instagram, seeing his posts, wondering if he's anti-Armenian, like all these things that come up. And then sort of seeing that, in fact, like the music that was played by Armenians is Ottoman Turkish music. That's what it is. And you have to understand that, and realizing too, a lot of Armenians who were here and came after the genocide, they sang these songs in Turkish, and they love them. I think it would be like an equivalent of like, but younger generations, would prevent them from doing that. So it became this clash of people who actually survived a genocide being told by other people, you can't sing in Turkish, or you should only sing in Armenian. It's similar to like if a Holocaust survivor had a song that they loved that was in German, and younger people like us, our generation, saying, oh, you can't sing that. It's like, what right do we have to take
that actually happens in Israel with Wagner's music, right?
Yeah,
it's literally forbidden to be played.
Right. Actually, yeah. There's
preceded the Holocaust by decades.
Exactly, and a lot of this music is it's so old. There's a Curb Your Enthusiasm where he's whistling, Larry David's whistling a Wagner melody, and someone comes up to him and starts yelling at him and saying he's a traitor, and it actually is it's in two ways. It's really, it gets to the heart of some of the things we need to be thinking and talking about, but it's also totally ridiculous. So anyway, so that's been my process in that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting how we, how we find these connections that I feel they also surpass geography and nationalism. They're deeper than that. They're underneath those surface and superimposed structures. They're in our genes.
And another interesting thing is we have a neighbor here who's from Turkey who is actually studying the Armenian genocide.
Oh, wow.
So it's really a lot of the scholars now who are able to access records in Turkey are actually Turkish. So it's an interesting time. But I do think that there is like nationalism, Armenian. There's Eastern Armenian nationalism, like of Armenia today, which is very different than my grandparents. There's the different communities like in Lebanon and California. There's so many. Yeah. So anyway, it's complicated.
Yeah.
So I'll take us back to the moon and to Yasmoon, my daughter, who's now 7. And when I recorded her for the album, she was about 5 or less even. So she had some thoughts to share about the moon. So let's listen to a bit of childhood wisdom.
القمر برصة القمر فريدة القمر دايما القمر كريمة القمر نايمة.
Did you know what I found out in a book?
What?
If you get a flashlight and you get a red sack and you put it on and you put like that on the moon, you can see its tiny holes.
Really? You can see the craters on the moon through a flashlight? Oh my gosh, I need you to show me that book. I don't quite understand how to do that.
In my book, we read a bit of the constellations.
About the constellations? Yeah, are you interested in the moon and the constellations?
Yeah, I just don't know where it is for a long time.
Where the book is? Oh, I think I saw it this morning.
Because I forgot.
It's okay.
It's been with it for a long, long time. I think that it's pretty and beautiful.
It's pretty and beautiful.
And it's also, I think somebody is inside the moon.
Who?
I don't know.
A person? Or a spirit?
Or a bear. White bear, maybe.
White bear, maybe?
Or maybe all of the dolls. And that's how they are born.
They're born on the moon?
Maybe.
And do you feel the moon walking with you?
Yeah.
So tell me about it.
It walks whenever we see it. It comes with us. And I remember of Ziggy. He's our cat's neighbor. One time he got lost and then he saw me and then he ran to me.
Yeah, he ran to you, Ziggy, the cat, the neighbor's cat?
Always, whenever I see the moon, he comes with me. When we were little kids, whenever we got out of the supermarket, then I saw the moon, then we were like, yeah, in a box. We were like, yeah, that's the one.
So you were singing and tapping on a box when you were teeny tiny and you saw the moon when we got out of the supermarket? On the supermarket box you were tapping? Ah, that's so fun. Can you sing that song for me again? And who wrote this song?
I did.
I think you did. I think you did. When you were so little.
I don't remember.
Do you remember when you were teeny, teeny, teeny tiny, that every night you and me would go out looking for the moon?
And sometimes Daddy.
And sometimes Daddy. And sometimes Ma'ol and Maya. Maya was just a baby.
I remember one time I got outside with you and with Maya and with me, and we all together got up and we walked like that, and then we saw the full moon. Something like that.
Yeah.
In Vancouver.
In Vancouver, so you were really small.
And it's the same thing with the Yagak.
Also, you sang it then? Do you sing it every time you see the moon?
Yeah.
You sing it every time, right?
Almost.
Almost. Oh, not every single time.
I'm not singing it.
Sometimes you don't. What's your favorite stage of the moon?
When I was born.
And what was the moon like when you were born?
When it was like a tiny light.
Sliver moon. Sliver moon. And that's your favorite phase of the moon?
Yeah.
When it's just starting?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it too. When it's thin as a fingernail?
Yeah.
In reality, is it really that thin? What is it like in reality? It's huge, right?
It's huge.
So why does it look like that, though? Why does it look thin if it's big? What?
Because we're far from him.
That's why it looks small, that's right. But why does it look like only one part is white or light?
Because of the sun.
Because of the sun? What happens with the sun?
The sun gives it light.
The sun gives it light. It reflects the light. Motek, I love you so much. Oh, Vasily. Is he howling at the moon? Yasmoon. Yeah, so apparently all toys are born on the moon. And especially the bears. So we're coming close to the close of the hour. I just really want to thank you both for being here today and sharing your thoughts. It's been so interesting to talk about this, and it feels like just the beginning of more conversations to come.
Yeah.
And I also want to thank Laura Silverman, amazing Laura Silverman, who's been doing all the backstage work for these conversations every month. And it's such an incredible thing to have a person by your side that helps you and not ever taken, that's not an obvious thing. So thank you, Laura, who is also a curly person like Eylem and I. I feel like the curls are everywhere today. And before we say goodbye, Birdie Lawson has also some words to share about the month ahead. So let's hear what Birdie has to say.
Hello, I'm Birdie from Four Directions NYC, and I am so happy to be working alongside Ayelet. I contributed some lyrics to this album, and I'm really happy to be sharing my knowledge and wisdom on astrology and Native American mythology every month as it applies and pertains to what's happening. The 9th of July, we have a very sweet, gentle, relatively easy as far as new moons go, new moon in Cancer. This is a chance for you to really just connect and accept rather than come up with a new plan or strategize something out of the blue. This is a continuation of what you've been working on. And what this new moon is going to allow you to do is step into a space of really connecting on a deeper level to what you've been trying to bring into your heart space, into your life, into your everyday. Make sure that you are taking space for yourself to enjoy that and to make that connection. So, self-care, connecting to nature, being around people that really nourish you, activities that make you feel loved and held, so that you can sink into this space more easily. Similarly, 2 days later, we have Mercury moving into Cancer. This is allowing us to communicate with love and ease, to connect from our hearts to one another in this way that maybe isn't always verbal, but it's going to be easier for us to show our affection. It's going to be easier for us to nourish what needs nourishing, whether it's ourselves, other people, our pets, our children, things that are close to us. That's going to be kind of like the main task when Mercury is in Cancer, which, I mean, in my opinion, should always be the main task. But Mercury in Cancer is going to make that very clear if it hasn't been clear or if we've been sort of lost from that. On the 21st, we have our first Virgo placement ahead of Virgo season, but we've got Venus moving into Virgo. And this is also going to be really nice and grounding because it's going to help us see what we're working with and give us this room to strategize and plan like the Virgo does. And get a more realistic sense of the timeline that we're working with. And again, if you've been paying attention to astrology, with all these eclipses and all this energy moving through the universe, it has been very difficult to see ahead, more so than usual. So, and I say that as a person who is experienced with having vision. In the last 6 months, it's been very difficult to know what the steps are because there's so many changes happening on Earth and in our cosmos. This Venus in Virgo is going to give us some idea of where we're headed and show us where we are on the map and show us where we need to go and what we're going to need to do that. Take your time to study that and to be alone and kind of look at things and then connect to those energies that are helping you get from point A to point B. The next day, we have Sun moving into Leo. The Cancer represents that maternal side of the way we connect to family and each other, and the Leo represents the paternal, the Sun energy. And basically what we're going to experience this year is kind of what we experience every year with the entrance of Leo, but even more so this year because Leo's just really ready. It's coming in as really ready with this energy to help us really forget about anything that we think is in our way to our dreams and our desires and just commit to it and just live by that. every day. And so it should be strengthening and empowering. And, you know, these things that you think you couldn't accomplish, you might feel like you suddenly can during Sun and Leo, because that's what like the Leo energy is there to do, is give you that bright, positive, and muscular energy to just say, you know, yeah, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it. With all this really sweet kind of introspective energy with the Virgo and the Cancer, you should know exactly what it is you want to do by then. And so this should just really give you the impetus to do it. The next day, we have our full moon of the month, which is in Aquarius, also called the buck moon, which is a reference to, in Native American culture, when bucks grew their horns, their full horns.
I love to ovulate when the moon is full and bleed when she almost disappears.
And it's also called the thunder moon. That's another name for it. Both are applicable to you and what you're experiencing, because this is, a lot of astrologers are calling this the moon to get unstuck. And I'm just seeing it as like showing what growth is taking place. And just kind of like I said about the new moon, where you don't have to do much. It's just a coming together of what you've been working on, the magic seeds you've been sowing in the universe. This growth is something that's been taking place. What the full moon in Aquarius is going to do is just kind of push it to the next level and give you the wings that you need to fly away from certain situations that are holding you back, and break it up a bit. You know, this definitely is one of those moons that like breaks our rhythm so that we can really see the whole picture and from a detached point of view. With that thunder moon, I think of thunder in like astrology represents revelations. And so the full moon in Aquarius has full vision on what's happening emotionally, what's happening externally, all of it. The best advice I give you is make room for the thunder and embrace the thunder and let it undo what needs undoing without interruption. Give yourself a couple days, give yourself, mental space, emotional space. On July 27th, we have Mercury moving into Leo, feeling what feelings need to be felt and connecting with all that. Now we're going to get the voice, the lion's roar with the Mercury in Leo, the strength and the courage to say. So for artists and people who are using that medium, it's going to be really a chance to take it to the next level. But for anyone, really, this is an opportunity to make things really, really crystal clear. And maybe even say the things that we've been afraid to say, express the things that we've been afraid to express. With the Mercury and Leo, we'll have the courage to do that. Close out the month with a Mars in Virgo. So that's going to slow us down considerably from Mars and Leo. Really just hold us in place and go, okay, where do we need to focus? Give us this really laser sharp focus. Show us the parts that we already have and what we need to do to put the pieces together. So not going to be running around looking for new things, just kind of working on what we've already got at the table and tying up loose ends and getting things straight, basically. So all in all, a really productive, healthy month full of growth.
I had once been a woman. I had once been a human. I had once been made of trees and huckleberries. I had once been a
woman. Hi. I remember you playing that every time I hear that line. Aram.
Oh yeah. It's interesting because the guitar, I was thinking when I was listening in the beginning, like normally I bring my Telecaster for anything I do, but I was like, I'm gonna bring this other guitar that I love and I play a lot, but that I decided to I don't know, be a little bit risky. And it sounds really nice.
It sounds so nice.
I love the way it sounds.
It was an acoustic guitar, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's an old Gibson from the 30s. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And you added all those textures to it that took it places it didn't know it could go.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear it. I love listening to the vinyl.
I
so
love
rich.
vinyl.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we made that choice because it's just a different feeling.
Yeah.
When you're holding an object, and it's beautiful. It takes up the space, you know. I'm all for the clouds and the digital, but there's something nice about allowing something to take space. You know?
Yeah.
I'm definitely all for that sometimes. It's not an eco-friendly thing, but you know, we all have our vices and vinyl is mine. So I just want to thank you again, and I think it's time to say goodbye. I don't feel like it, but I hope to see you very soon again and to get to play together again someday in the near future somehow in the actual physical world to take up space together in the physical world.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us in the
Thank you for being here.
It's awesome. It's always so.
So much love
great
to you.
to see that. Can't wait to play together. Yeah.
Yeah, soon.
Soon, amen.
Yes.
Much